Humanity is slowly marching towards a silent data crisis. The size of the internet has been growing exponentially for decades, and the two current storage technologies we rely upon are reaching their physical limitations. Packing more magnetic cells in hard drives and more flash storage units in SSDs is becoming increasingly difficult. In the age of big data, with applications processing humongous amounts of information on a daily basis, we might soon have to figure out a new way to store data, lest innovation get hindered by the increasing costs of having to buy more and more storage devices. It's a race against technology itself, and it involves playing God while turning astronomical costs and time durations into human-sized values in order to win. When faced with a new challenge, humanity sometimes looks at nature. Cutting-edge stealth planes are inspired by birds. Japanese high-speed trains mimic the kingfisher's beaks for better aerodynamics. Biometric flying robots are inspired by birds. But it's not just birds, okay? Velcro was inspired by burr fruits, which are fruits full of dangerous, sharp claws that hook onto cloth and sometimes even maybe human skin and tear it apart. The point is, copying nature is smart. So why should we start from scratch when you can copy the work that nature has cut out for you? Tastes like cancer. If we apply this philosophy to data, the only real form of information storage that you can find in nature is DNA. Let's start from the positives of DNA and then we'll get to some crazy, weird problems. Some scientists managed to extract 13,000 years old DNA from a tooth and 72,000 years old DNA from an ear bone to recover enough genetic material to de-extinguish, and yes, that's the scientific term for it, the direwolf, which went extinct about 10,000 years ago. This is all to say that sometimes the information stored inside of DNA can survive under the harshest of conditions for tens of thousands of years. Someone made an apple tree that stores actual information like a real tree of knowledge. I'll tell you more in a moment. The storage potential of DNA is insane. Guess which one of these spheres represents the total mass of DNA you would require to store the entirety of the internet as of July 2025. Please write your guess down. If we get enough comments, we can test the wisdom of the crowd principle, for which the average response of a large group of people ends up being very close to the correct guess for these kinds of questions. Anyways, I want you to think about how, even if this was the answer, it would still be impressive. We are talking about something that could replace most data centers on Earth, not accounting for their processors and like that, while fitting in a single parking space. You could put this into a medium-sized garage without any issues. But let me give you a hint. This one is not the answer. Oh, and by the way, this is the densest storage material ever made. It can store 35 bits per electron, or 20 bits per nanometer squared. A sheet of several layers of this material could house the whole internet. It's called quantum holography. Let me know if you want me to make a full video about it down in the comments below. Let's start from an assumption. DNA can be synthesized. Starting from naturally sourced DNA sequences, we can submerge our samples in a couple of different chemicals. There's a specific sequence of steps that allows us to extend those sequences by one nucleotide, one little brick. By repeating this process, we can produce oligonucleotides, short DNA sequences of at most 200 or 300 base pairs. And if I keep throwing random words at you without explaining their meaning, you'll stop watching the video. You'll stop watching. DNA is a double helix structure formed by these little bars. If we wind it, it looks like a ladder. Every prong is called a base pair. Each pair contains two building blocks called nucleotide bases. DNA is formed by 4 bases: adenine, guanine, ketosine, and thymine, or AGCT for short. Each of these bases can only bind with another one of the remaining 3. G can only ever bind to C and vice versa, and A can only ever bind to T and vice versa. But while there are only 2 possible base pairs, you can actually find one of 4 things at every step of this ladder. This is because each of the 2 pairs can occur in one of two orientations. This will be important for later, as it actually doubles the theoretical storage capacity of DNA. Before figuring out what to write or how to even interpret the contents of DNA, like a decent organ trafficker, you need to figure out where you'll store it once you have it. One hypothesis involves storing oligonucleotides, or oligos for short, actual edgy term used in every research article ever, and it's insane to me that they go to great lengths to write in the most sophisticated English known to man, and then they put some stupid like this into a bunch of vials. These vials contain specific chemicals that would allow the DNA to last for longer periods of time without decaying. While this is the cheapest way to store DNA, it's also the most complex process that carries a higher chance of data loss. So what's the alternative, you ask? You curious little writing in the DNA of a living organism, baby, what? And I can already hear you typing away like a little sniveling cunt. But wouldn't altering the DNA of a living creature make it sick? To the point of making it unhealthy and incapable of surviving? Joe Davis, an artist and researcher, managed to put some parts of Wikipedia into a 4,000-year-old strain of apple tree, and he did it in a way that left the tree completely functional. He called it Malus Ecclesia, which is unironically actually a fire name. But how did he do it? Well, it turns out that with complex enough organism, there's going to be what's called non-functional DNA. It's genetic data that doesn't serve any purpose. It might be something that served an actual purpose at an earlier stage of evolution, or it might be the result of ancient, prehistoric DNA infection that altered the DNA of our ancestors. In humans, a big percentage of our genome, of our DNA, is in fact the result of viral infections. And that DNA serves no purpose whatsoever. That's what Mr. Davis used, but it was kind of a proof of concept. The amount of data we intend to store in DNA is much, much higher than that, beyond the capabilities of traditional storage mediums. If we don't succeed at doing that, this whole endeavor is pretty much worthless. But more data means a higher chance of errors. If you compromise even one single base in the whole DNA sequence, the binary output might actually be unusable. Hey, what the fuck? What the fuck is a binary output, man? Well, I guess I do need to introduce some things. Computers store everything as sequences of ones and zeros. Words, pictures, videos of your mother's fat ass. Each of those digits is called a bit. Let's take text as an example. To convert a random piece of text into binary, you need an encoding table. This table simply maps every single character to a different unique binary string. To encode any given text, simply replace each letter in your input with its associated binary sequence. To decode the message, just do the opposite. DNA lends itself particularly well to binary encoding, just like I lend myself extremely well to being supported through the link in the top right corner in the description of the video, which could change the entire course of my life. I'm not even kidding. The 4 possible base pairs from a DNA ladder can encode all the values that a pair of bits can assume. 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. Meaning that, in theory, any given DNA strand encodes an amount of information that is twice its number of base pairs. But we haven't really gotten close to the 2 bits per base pair yet. Remember the DNA writing techniques I mentioned? Each iteration takes a few seconds to do, which means that you have writing speeds that are about 100 billion times slower than commercially available SSDs. If you wanted to write the entirety of the internet onto DNA using this technology, it would take you the entire age of the universe, 13 billion years, to write 1/40th of a millionth of the estimated internet's size on DNA. But writing is not the only big challenge. In fact, DNA synthesis technology has been making leaps and bounds. And I'm sure that we'll eventually get there. But one thing that's not subject to much change is a universal law of nature. Everything decays at some point. And this also applies to DNA. It degrades over time. Sure, we did bring back direwolves from DNA samples, but the vast majority of direwolf DNA out there is probably missing some pieces. I mean, we had to take two different DNA sources tens of thousands of years apart, and we had to put them inside of healthy wolf cells to produce the direwolf. We didn't even recover the whole thing. In DNA storage, over time, some of the bases could get knocked off. The DNA could get coiled, or some of the bases in different points of a given DNA strand might actually interlock, messing up the whole sequence. This means that we need some form of redundancy. We need to introduce a mechanism that allows us to detect storage errors and then correct them in some shape or form. But to do it, we need to make some space. Remember this encoding table? It's f***ing stupid. Using sequences that are the same length for every letter is dumb as shit. Some letters, like vowels, are way more common than others, which implies that we should assign shorter sequences to them. On the flip side, letters like the J, the W, the X can f*** off and go get a longer sequence. I don't care. We need to build an efficient coding scheme. A good example that was successfully tested on DNA is the Huffman code. Here's how it works. Given your input text, take the probability of each letter. This would be the number of occurrences of each letter divided by the total number of characters in the text. Create a small node for each letter in the text. Take the two nodes with the lowest probability and put them under a new parent node. The probability of this new node is the sum of its children. Label the left branch with a 0 and the right with a 1. Repeat the process again, and consider only nodes that don't have a parent. Keep repeating this process again and again. You'll start merging some small groups of nodes. At some point you will have a single root node capturing every other node. You're done! The code of each letter is now the sequence of values you encounter when going from the root node to the letter's node. The most frequent letters got absorbed last, putting them closer to the root node, which in turn assigns them a shorter code word. This is just one example of a coding algorithm. There are many more, and they can be much more complex than this. The thing is, this is still a strictly experimental field of research, and so different schemes are being proposed and attacked all the time. There is no industry standard of DNA encoding schemes because there's no industry to begin with. Reading. It's the biggest issue we are facing so far. Imagine going to a library and asking for a book. But because you're a complete moron, you can't read the book unless you go to a copy shop and print 1 million copies of the exact same book. But the copier is also stupid as shit, and it adds repeated words or it deletes certain words under specific circumstances. For example, imagine that any time that the word circumcision appeared in your For a Skinny Historia book that you borrowed from the library, the copier actually replaced it with circus mission. What am I even talking about? This is how the current mainstream DNA reading mechanism works, and it's a fucking nightmare. It's called PCR, and it works by taking 1/2 of the sample that you need to read, or sequence, as they say, and it makes clones of it through a repeated process of duplication. The number of copies of the DNA that you make grows exponentially with the number of cloning iterations you perform. After you have enough copies, you can finally sequence and read the DNA. And if that wasn't enough, PCR is also extremely susceptible to homopolymers. I mean, sequences composed by the same base repeated multiple times. When you have an homopolymer, the cloned DNA sequences end up having more or fewer bases in the copies of the homopolymer. This can effectively corrupt all of the data stored in the original sequence. Luckily, there's been a huge breakthrough from a company called Oxford Nanopore Technology. Their new process is something more akin to scanning. It passes a single strand of DNA through a nanopore, a microscopic little hole, just like the one I have. A tiny electrical current flows through this hole. Depending on the base currently passing through the hole, the current is altered in different ways. This allows you to sequence a whole DNA chain by measuring the different kinds of disruptions that occur. The current technology can sample hundreds of bases per second, but it also has a 10% error rate. fuck? But wait, using some tailor-made error correction schemes that introduce some redundancy into the data, researchers managed to write and retrieve data on DNA successfully using this technology with a storage density of 1.72 bits per base pair. Why isn't it 2? Well, it's not only because you lose 10% of the information to the errors, it's because of the aforementioned redundancy. To put it another way, some of the bits that were stored in the DNA did not contain any actual information but were used to detect and correct encoding errors in the DNA sequence. Think of it like storing the same piece of text several times in different locations, so that if you lose some bits and pieces here and there, you still have a decently high chance of recovering the full original string. This got them to a storage density, and you need to shut the fuck up, of over 215 petabytes per each gram of DNA. So it seems that the encoding aspect is quite taken care of. We know what to write to use the DNA extremely efficiently, but there's still lots of work to be done in the reading department, and maybe even more in the writing. But don't lose your hope just yet. The Human Genome Project was the first ever attempt to sequence human DNA. It took 13 years. It sequenced 92% of the total genome. It required an international collaboration of 20 institutions, companies, and laboratories, and it cost $2.7 billion. The Nanopore technology I mentioned, it costs about $70 per gigabyte read. The sequencing instrument, called Oxford Nanopore Minion or MinION, I don't fucking know, costs about $1,000. DNA tech seems to be following the early stages of many other computer science innovations. Slow, clunky, expensive, and error-prone, but also filled with amazing breakthroughs that reshaped our world in the span of a few decades. Here's the answer to the question at the start of the video. This is how much DNA it would take to store the entirety of the internet. Half the size of a car. By the way, please subscribe, like, and enable notifications because no one watches these videos anymore. And if you can, please leave a comment. It costs you nothing, but it genuinely boosts me way more than a subscription. And if this is the last time I see you, have a nice rest of your life.